Hello, Captains. Okay, so it's time for another review the YouTube comments video. This is from the mission Sunrise. This introduces Season 11 New Dawn in Star Trek Online. This was the mission they chose to introduce us to the new Season 11 of story arc missions that will start now and continue through 2016. I don't know how many seasons that this, quote, new path of exploration or whatever, this new dawn will continue, but I hope to see it last a long time. However, I don't think it has, because already in this first mission, Sunrise, spoilers by the way, we went from exploration, and within the first 5 minutes of exploration went straight into fighting the Tholians and getting involved in the temporal Cold War. All within 5 minutes of the mission. So yeah, Cryptic said Season 11, New Dawn, is going to be about exploration. The Iconian War is over, that's behind us, and Season 11 would be all about exploration. Well, in the first 5 minutes of Sunrise, that's dropped. So I'm not sure how exploratory the rest of the missions are going to be, considering that I have now also played Stormbound, and it had nothing to do with exploration at all. So, yeah. Anyway, I did enjoy the mission Sunrise itself. It was fun. It was new and different. And so I'm going to read the comments. Again, I'm going to read them first, comment on them, and edit it as needed. So, okay. First things here, a little bit of confusion. It had been a long time since I had seen the episode with Picard and Vash in TNG, and were introduced to the Toxutot for the first time in Star Trek. So when I played this mission, I had forgotten all that information. Apparently, they did mention who the creator of the Toxutot was even back then. The creator is Caldano. So in this mission, when we meet Caldano, he is the inventor of the Toxutot, or the quantum device, whatever he calls it. He is the inventor of it. Now, he is from the 27th century, not from the 31st. So this person says, that's what I thought. Cardano says he's from the 31st century. No, in the mission, he says the ship he is in is from the 31st century. But Caldano himself, even I believe he said it in the mission, he's from the 27th century where he created the Toxutot. So there's a discrepancy already, as you're seeing in this mission. He's from the 27th century, but he's using a time pod from the 31st century. How in the world is that possible? Well, obviously, somebody from the 31st century has to pay Caldano a visit and give him a time pod. Now, who that somebody is actually kind of answered in a blog that was later posted about all these things that happened, like outside of the mission or episode. So there's a certain person that you are probably familiar with, and if I mention the series Enterprise, you will really be familiar with, who might have paid Caldano a visit in the 27th century. That's how he gets a 31st century time ship. But there's still, the question is how does even that happen, and why is that happening? I don't know. But yeah, Caldano from the 27th century, he created the Toxutot in the 27th century. It somehow ends up in the 24th century where Picard finds it and then destroys it. Now the Vorgons are from the 27th century, the same time frame as Caldano. They're the ones who want to steal the Toxutot. Alright. Okay, Talk says, so you didn't recognize the Starfleet symbol on the walls inside the ship? And I said, no, I didn't. And I have replayed that mission since several times, and I still don't see the Starfleet symbol on the walls. I do see some kind of weird shape on the wall, but it doesn't look anything like the Starfleet symbol to me. So maybe I'm looking at it wrong, but I don't see Starfleet symbolization anywhere in Caldano's 31st century time pod. That psych guy says, I'm ready for a break from time travel. I wish they'd update and bring back that planet generation tech they had in the old exploration clusters for more variety. You know, I thought that's what we were going to be getting out of also. Didn't they say season 11 was going to be about exploration, and we're putting the Iconian War behind us, which dealt a lot with time travel? Yet here we are again, deep in time travel. Something's not adding up. Okay, G Scrubble 18 says, no, yes, says, in my game it did say that his ship had the weapons capability of a battleship even though it was the size of a shuttle. So I had mentioned, why doesn't his ship seem more powerful considering it's from the future? And they do say it has the weapon capability of a battleship. I did catch that dialogue in the mission, so I know what he's referring to. That said, it seems like maybe the weapons capability of a battleship from the 24th or 5th century, not the 31st century, because if it was a battleship of the 31st century weapon tech, he should have blown the Tholians out with one shot. So something's not adding up there either. Sure, it may have battleship capable weaponry on a tiny little shuttle, but it's like not anywhere near what would 31st century, power level would be. It's like only what we would have on a battleship in the 25th century. So, yeah, still not as advanced as it should be, I say. I'm guessing that's probably just like a lower end model. They probably have different levels or models of time pods, like just like the Doctor got the Type 40 TARDIS, which wasn't the latest version of the TARDIS. He stole an earlier version. The Master's TARDIS was like I forgot what the Master's TARDIS was. Was it Type 50 or 60? It was a higher type model. So the Doctor had a lower end model. So I'm thinking the time pod is probably just like their lower end time pod. Like, here's the bargain basement time pod, has basic weaponry on it for that time period. Daniel Bertizan says, I don't care about the exploration. I care about the mirror universe story arc. When I look at Star Trek, I look for the mirror universe, the evil characters, the darkness, the threats to the Federation, the good stuff. A lot of people do. A lot of people like that stuff. I don't think, though, that is the heart of what Star Trek was when Gene Roddenberry created it. I think he wanted Star Trek to be a very utopian society where, like, Earth was like this utopia, great thing. Everything was perfect on our end, but there were threats in the universe, but we dealt with them in a different way. It seems since then that it's kind of migrated into more warlike. And the Mirror Universe, keep this in mind about the Mirror Universe, that was never supposed to be the prime storyline in Season 11 and moving forward. That was just supposed to be a side stuff. That's like, you consider that like optionals. If you've ever played games that have like optionals that you don't have to complete for the main storyline to win the game, but you can do side quests, like on your own, just to do extra stuff. That's kind of what the Mirror Universe stuff is in Star Trek Online. It's side quest. It's just extra stuff that they've added on to do on the side. But the main story arc is about the temporal Cold War this season. So we're back in, if you want war stuff, we're definitely back into a war. I gotta say, exploration, though, is what made Star Trek Star Trek. I mean, you go all the way back to the original Star Trek, and that's the nature of the Enterprise. They're on a 5-year exploration mission. I mean, that's the primary storyline of the original Star Trek series. A 5-year exploration mission to explore strange new worlds. That's it. That's what they're on. That's what started Star Trek. When you go back to the beginning, exploration is the beginning of Star Trek. At its heart, that's what it is, I believe. I mean, it really can't be denied. That was the goal. That is what the original Star Trek was. 5-year mission to explore space. Stungundum says, I'm really not liking the going into the time war, but it does have promise. I also agree with you that a ship from the 31st shouldn't have lost its shields so fast to a ship from the 25th century. Nor should it have been so easy to get the talks as what in the 31st ship security systems be able to handle things like people boarding. And also, he outright said, "You won't be able to get a transporter lock in my ship because of the subspace folds." That is a specific line in the mission. I know, I've played it several times now. That's why he has to beam us aboard his ship, because we can't get a transporter lock. So how in the world are the Tholians able to get a transporter lock if we can't? Something not adding up. Dylan says, "Don't forget that the Tholians also have temporal technology, so maybe those Tholian ships also have future technology, but that would make it weird because the player destroys them so easily." Yeah, the Tholians' time travel abilities are mysterious at best. Okay, we know they have dimensional ability, meaning crossing to different dimensions, but traveling to different dimensions or universes is not time travel. That's just going like to the mirror universe or to other many other universes probably that they visit. But that's not time travel. The actual ability for them to go into the future or the past is mysterious, because if they were able to time travel, wouldn't they use that as a weapon? Wouldn't they go into the past and try to change things for themselves for the better? You know, you would think they would, because there was that one timeline where it was from Temporal Ambassador, the mission Temporal Ambassador, where we are in a different universe where the Tholians have taken over. That's what they want ultimately. So I don't know their ability to use time travel. It's possible people from the future have time traveled to meet them. Maybe their future selves, maybe Tholians from the future have time traveled into the past to give them stuff. But then they would probably be more powerful than they are now. So they're kind of on the level with us. So they've got dimensional travel down, but I don't quite know about outright time travel. Now, they probably are mixed up in the temporal Cold War in the future, just not right now in the 25th century. Although they did know exactly when Caldano would show up there in the 25th century, or they knew how to lure him there. They knew about him and how to lure him there. So there is information they have that would indicate they are time travelers. But that could be just somebody feeding them that information, kind of like Future Guy. Maybe they have a Future Guy who keeps feeding them information from the future. That's all it would take. And then they could act on it. Maybe that's the answer. They're said to have captured future ships and stripped them of their technology, which may explain why they could get through to Caldano's defenses. The Terrans have their own hands on future technology. The Tholians and Terrans have fought each other once and before and so on. And all these little threads could be coming together. Yeah, that makes sense. See, I think they've captured future technology. I don't know that they've time traveled to the future. So I think that the Tholians are kind of like scavengers in that they take odds, bits and things that they find out there. I think so. Don't rush to conclusions about the incoming storyline. You have just witnessed only the first of its episodes. Yeah, well, you know. That's all good, but all we can see is what we have in front of us, and they are leading us into a temporal Cold War. And they did say it was going to be exploration, so something is not adding up. I consider the Xindi stuff in Enterprise the lowest point of Enterprise. I liked the first couple of seasons of Enterprise when it was exploration. They were getting to go to new worlds. We saw the Klingon homeworld. We saw like Orions. We saw, you know, it was a first time. It was those first contact missions or whatever. That's Star Trek to me. That's exploration. Remember what the original Star Trek was all about, that 5-year exploration mission. That's what it would be in the 22nd century. You send a ship out for a year or two and go explore the universe, right? This is their first Warp 5 ship. It can go farther than any other ship. They should be exploring. The Xindi arc should have never have happened. Should have never have happened. The temporal Cold War should have never have happened. I stand firm on that. That is my opinion. You can disagree with me. But that's where I stand on those issues. What they should have done, and I've always believed this, is they should have been building the war toward the Romulans, because it wasn't too far from that future that Earth went to war with the Romulans. It was the war where nuclear weapons of all things were used. And we never saw the face of the Romulans, so we never connected them with the Vulcans. And all this was stated, of course, in the original Star Trek series. So this, at that time period, in Archer's time period, they should have been having strained relations with the Romulans, or this mysterious alien that's out there, like, taking out, Starfleet ships or something. They should have been building up that storyline, building up to the war with the Romulans. That's what should have been happening at this time period. So they were not really doing that. Also, a TV series or movie dealing with the Romulan War outright would be incredible. I mean, it happened right there at that early 22nd century. It was huge, and it was Earth's first war with an alien species. Huge for humans. I mean, our first alien war, right? That's huge. We had to use our own ships. We didn't have allies. Like, we didn't have the Federation then. We had some friends. Maybe some Tellarites helped us, or had some friendly help. But we never had like a coalition of allies. We had to fight the war ourselves. It was an Earth war. It wasn't a Federation war. It was an Earth war, and that's what they should have explored. Could you imagine a TV show dealing with that? Would be so incredible. They could have gone down that path, and they chose not to. Instead, they went with this stupid Cindy thing. And that's my opinion. Brandon makes an interesting observation. He thinks the Iconian War was a precursor to the Temporal Cold War. And it would make sense with it happening now. The Mirror Universe stole future tech to beat the Iconians. And what if the Mirror Universe good guys have come back and across to our timeline to ask us for help? Seems like something Star Trek would do. These events would actually put us smack in the middle of it. I like that idea. If they connected it to the Iconian stuff being the beginnings of the Temporal Cold War, and the fact that Mirror Universe stole future people from the Mirror Universe came back and gave them weaponry, wouldn't people from the future have a problem with that in our universe, and start this whole Temporal Cold War thing? That would be very interesting. If they connected those dots in that way, that would be very smart of them. I would actually like to see that. Jared Hall says, that ship looks exactly like the time ship Enterprise found in the episode that time was looping. The Tholians were attacking the ship then too. Yep, and we actually learn a little bit more about that in the next mission, Stormbound. But yeah, that is the same time pod, and Caldano was the same occupant they found in it. Crazy Knights asks, where has Ricky been, Ensign Ricky, been all this time? Just a question, nothing to freak out about. Most of the time I ask the questions. Okay, so Ensign Ricky has just been collecting dust. He's very dusty. Lately I have pulled him out of the dustbin, and I have been giving him some exposure to the universe once again. He is very rusty. He's only had like Mark 12 weaponry and no specialization, well, barely any specialization points, and just really not prepared for the universe that's out there right now. He's very underpowered. But I am slowly working on him, trying to get him up to a level where he's acceptable. Working on some reputations. Right now I'm working on the Iconian reputation with him. So slowly building him back up. One day Ensign Ricky will reign again, maybe in a Tier 6 Dreadnought. Vash STPD says, did you forget that Tholians are part of the Temporal Cold War? Their tech and weapons are from the future. No, I don't think that their tech and weapons are from the future. I just think that they are an advanced species, and being interdimensional, as I mentioned, they probably have other dimension technology. But they're not from the future, and they're not, as far as I know, they're not time traveling to the future, as I just talked about. But I do get the part that they're probably part of the Temporal Cold War, maybe not now in the 25th century, but definitely in the future. Heard a few storylines for Future Guy. One storyline is that Future Guy was Captain Archer sometime in the future. Daniels would be brought Archer into the future in the 29th century, and he wanted to change the timeline so that Enterprise never happened, and he would have been brought into the future by Daniels. The same thing about the second storyline where Trip Tucker was brought into the future by Daniels, and Trip became Future Guy, and he was using the Suliban to stop Enterprise, thereby changing events and keeping Trip in the past. I don't like the idea about Trip being Future Guy, but Archer could have been Future Guy. I mean, we'll never really know at this point. But it leans the rumors of where they had, I think, or the heading down in the storyline was that Archer would have been a Future Guy, which I don't know if that was the best decision or not. But anyway, it doesn't matter now. Michelson YouTube says, I really enjoy your considerations around the episodes, but sometimes you go too far compared with the game developers who can't put the two after the one. Like the entire Iconian War, all around the Iconians was their gates that allowed them to instantly travel without the need of starships and attack anywhere at any time. But the game developers just make them use starships and attack in our linear manner. Lol. But I agree with you. If they have gates, why wouldn't they use them? I don't know what you mean by I go too far compared with the game developers. I'm just putting out. They've given us this content. I'm just putting the ideas how they could use that better. I mean, let's think about an alien species that does have gate technology like that. Would you fly around in starships everywhere, or would you just use gates? I mean, let's think about Stargate, the series. You know, here's the ancients who have stargates. They probably just use stargates a lot. Sure, they had ships and they used those too, but I mean, the whole reason for a stargate is to use a stargate. Whole reason for the Iconian gates is to use an Iconian gate. So they have space ones and ground ones, so they can do both. So yeah, I mean, if they have that technology, why wouldn't they? One thing I think that has let us down in the whole entire Iconian War storyline is that they weren't used appropriately. The Iconians with that technology should have been coming out of nowhere with out of these gates, destroying worlds, destroying fleets, whittling us down to nothing. And none of that was ever done. And that's why it didn't really feel like a threat to us. Because the game developers didn't make it feel like a threat to us. They have to make these things feel like a threat, or else, I mean, just saying it on screen that they're a threat isn't enough. You've got to show it. You got to say, you got to say, that the Iconians have been coming through gates all over the galaxy, doing like guerrilla runs at fleets and taking out ships and star bases and stuff like that. You do stuff like that and you'll build up a reason for kicking their butt. A reason for why we need to go after them. They didn't build that up enough is what I'm trying to say. W.S. Fletcher says, sometimes you are too verbose. Thank you. He says, the one problem I have is that this is not an exploration mission. Exactly. That's what they said, right? Season 11 was going to be back to exploration, and we're not. Well, that's pretty much the end of the comments there on Sunrise. Thank you all for the feedback on it. The biggest issue I have is just the fact that we had this big, discussion that they brought up. This is Cryptic themselves brought this up, that they were going to get back to the basics. Season 11 was back to exploration, and the Iconian War and stuff is behind us. Well, lo and behold, the very first mission, we're in a brand new war. Right? Something ain't adding up. And that's where I'll leave it. Thank you all for watching. Stay tuned for the next one.